Erev Tov Lekulam. We're going to start our shir in the halacha series of the Tzurba Rabbanon, and today, Be'ezus Hashem, we're going to be finishing up volume 11. Here I already have volume 12. Avram Chaim, I already sent it to Queens. It should get there tonight. It should be available for pickup tomorrow, and I'll send you details, and everyone else who ordered it from Queens, I'll send them details where they can pick it up, when they can pick it up. Be'ezus Hashem. So we can start already next week. We'll be starting volume 12 with Hashem's help. All right, let's start off on page 324 in the Tzurba Rabbanon. We are dealing with Tachanun and Nefilat Apayim. Tachanun is the prayer that we say on right after Shemona Esrei on a regular day. We get up, we say Ana Hashem Elokeinu, Hashamnu, Bagadnu. We say all those what we did wrong, and we hit ourselves on our heart, which is right about here. And every time we say Hashamnu, Magadnu, Zalnu, right? Each time we say one of those, we hit our heart. We don't have to hit it very hard. You just hit it, and that's the way you do that. Then in Nefilat Apayim, we said in the olden days, Nefilat Apayim was when they would bow down their head all the way to the ground, or they would go on the ground and their hands and their feet spread out like that. Today we don't do that. We Sfaradim don't do that at all. We don't do even this with Ashkenazim do when they do Tachanun. We don't go down on our hand either, on our head. We just sit. They put their head down on their hands, on their arms. That's considered Nefilat Apayim, dropping their head. Now, according to everyone, we're going to start page 324. Very important that when you're saying Tachanun, when you come to the David Lecha Hashem Nafshi Yisa, we're supposed to sit. You should sit. You should try to sit the best of your ability. If there's seats, you should sit. Nefilat Apayim Yushav v'lo me'umad. The Shulchan Aruch says you have to say it sitting, not the Hashamnu Bagadnu. Right after. Right, that's what the Mishnah Berurah said. The Mishnah Berurah said, no, and the Rivash said that you don't have to sit. So in a Shat HaTchak, when you don't have a seat, you're davening, when an ad hoc mincha, you're davening in the store or something like that. 10 people came together, and there's no chairs. Let's say.
No chairs. I see one chair. I sit down. The guy said, "Listen, not allowed to sit in my chair. Did you ask permission?"
Right. So if you don't have a seat where to sit, so you just say it's standing.
Okay, I got it.
And then you say it's standing. But if you have a seat, you should definitely sit. All right. This is what we did last week. Now we're going to start another discussion. This discussion is really not applicable to us, Sfaradim, because we don't put our head down on our hands. But we don't do that based on the Zohar. The Ashkenazim do that. We're going to have to see the halacha. So the Bet Yosef of Yosef Karo, he brings down which hand should people who put their heads down on their hands during Tachanun, which hand should they go down? On their left or on their right? So let's see. Because of Arukeach, Simon Shin Chav Dalin, Bezel Shono. Anu Matin Hayamin Kishchina Keneged Ha'odam. He says you go down on the right because the Shechina is before him. You go down on the right. On the right side, you put your head down, and the Shekhinah is going to be in front of him. And that's why you have a pasuk that says in Shir Hashinim that says, "Simalot tahat liroshi v'minot habikeni." And this is what the Rakeach says: you should go down. On the right side. But then the Beit Yosef brings the Shibbolei Haleket Kotav b'Shem Rabbeinu Hai. So Reb Hai says, Rabbeinu Hai says, the Shibbolei Haleket brings down, is that you're supposed to go down on the left. So you have the Rakeach says when you do Nefilat Apayim, you go down on the right. And you have the Shibbolei Haleket brings from Rabbeinu Hai that says you go down on the left. So what is to do? And he says you bring the reason why you go down on the left, Shema Haseva. She has Sevas b'nei Chorin u'Malachim. Hilkach ba'oto hatzad shenir kevein melech ve'ish Chorin tzarich lichna lifnei hamakom. So the Shibbolei Leket Rabbeinu Hai says, why go down on the left and not on the right? Right? The Rakach says you go down on the right because that's where the Shechina is. When you're going down on the right, you're facing the Shechina. The Shibbolei Leket says, no, you want to go down on the left. The left side is leaning. When you lean on Pesach night, you lean on the left side. Left side is Cheirus, it's freedom. You're leaning on the left, you're showing that even your freedom is subjugated to Hashem. Right? That you're going down, you're showing that your freedom is connected to Hashem. That's why he says to go down on the left. Now the Shulchan Aruch says, right? When you go down on the Filat Apayim, Nahagula tot al simol. The Shulchan Aruch went with the Shibbolei Leket, the Rabbeinu Hai, that said you should go down on the left side. The Ramah says, the Yesh la tot tzad yamin. The Ramah says you go on the right. You do Filat Apayim. Then he says, Va'ikir la tot b'shacharit. Kisheyesh lo tefillin bismalo al tzad yamin mishum kavod tefillin. So the Ramah says, however, when you have tefillin on, right? So because the Ramah says you should go down on the right. Shulchan Aruch says you go down on the left. But he says if you have tefillin, you don't go down on the tefillin hand. Al kavod tefillin. So if you're whatever you are, righty or lefty, whatever hand your tefillin is on, don't go down that hand. Go down on the other hand. That's what the Ramah says. That's what you do by shacharit. He means by mincha, or if he's davening shacharit for whatever reason without tefillin, then you should go down on the left. Tefillin bismalo yital smalo. Achish nafal apanav yigbia roshay. So he says everyone that they after they lean their head, they stand back up, they put their head back up, and they continue to Tachanunim, and each place should follow their makom. So you have Shulchan Aruch said left, Ramah said right, Ramah said don't go down when on your tefillin hand. Let's see what the Mishnah Berurah says. The Mishnah Berurah says, source 29, page 326. Because when a person is davening, the Shechina is on his right side. Because if you go down on your left, the Shechina is on your right. So your face is going to be in the direction of the Shechina. That's why you want to go down on the left. And a person shouldn't put his head opposite the Shechina. The Shechina is facing the right. You shouldn't face the left. That's why you should go down on the left side, so your head's facing the right. All right? What about according to the other side? Al tzad yamin. Ki hashchina neged ha'adam, v'nimtza semo hashchina keneged yamino. That the left of the Shechina is opposite his right. Somehow you are doing a right and a left thing, and it fulfills the Shira Shirim pasuk that your left and your right. That you're on your Tachat Roshi, the left is under your hand, and the right is the Shechina, which is on the right of your on the right of you. When you go down on the left, it is giving you a hug. Anyway, that's the Mishnah Berurah just explaining the both tzadim, why you want to go left, why you want to go right. Now he brings the ikar. What's the ikar? The Mishnah Berurah says, "V'chein data taz magen Avram she'en l'shno min hagzeh v'chein hagu olam v'afil hagra." Even according to the Gra, the Sover, the ikar kam mechaber, the tamidat simol. According to the mechaber, you go down on the left when you make nefilat apayim. The Gra, the Vilna Gaon said, even if you're wearing tefillin, you go down on the left. So the Gra next will go down on the left, even if they're wearing tefillin on the left, because that's what the Shulchan Aruch said. If you're praying in a Beit Midrash and they're knowing like the Ramah not to go down on the tefillin hand, so as the Mishnah Berurah says that even the people who go like the Gra and always put it on the left, if you're in a shul davening like the Ramah and they're going down on the opposite hand of the tefillin, then you should do the same thing. Shouldn't be if it's a minhag makam, follow the minhag makam. Then he talks about a chazan. If he's on the right of the aron, he should put his face a little bit facing towards the aron when he's going down. So if he's going down on his left, he should still somehow put his face this way. Usually you would just go down like that. But if the aron is that way, you want to face the aron a little bit. Now, uva aravit, when the Ramah said by aravit, you do it on the hand that's supposed to be the hainu mincha she'en anu nohagim laniach tefillin. Misha maniach tefillin gam sham yipol yamino. Then he should go down on his right, on the opposite of his tefillin hand. V'ayin v'chayodam shemitzad da'az yochel usmach al dat hagra v'yipol al similo. And he brings the Chai Adam who says you can go according to the Gra and still lean on his left arm. So basically, by the Ashkenazim, you have many opinions: left, right, tefillin, yes, on the other hand, or even on the tefillin hand. How are you, Noeg Reb Shmuel? On the right, on the opposite side tefillin, and by mincha, if you'd say Tachanun by mincha, and then on small. Okay, so they're different minhagim, and that means minhag. All right, now for us Sfaradim. Yes. Right. It's not noeg. We're not noeg this. The reason why we're not noeg this, even though the Mechaber said if you go down, the Mechaber, we don't put our heads down on the hands, but then if you let the pime. And even though the Mechaber said you should put your head down on the left, we don't do that based on the Zohar. The Zohar said that if you say the parak of Tehillim that we say, and you're not mechavin when you put your head down, you're going to die when you're young. So because of that, we don't put our head down at all. So what do the Ashkenazim do? They do the Nefilat Apayim. So what do they do? We're gonna see in a minute what they do. If you're doing the Davar Lecha Hashem Nafshei Yisad, don't do that when you don't put your head down during that part. Because it's Nefilat Apayim then.
That's why you're here. That's why you're here. You came the right time.
Okay. Now, this is another din here. Right, they're gonna say a different. They're gonna say parak 6 of Tehillim. They're gonna say kapitel vav. Because they're gonna do Nefilat Apayim. They say we also scared of what the Zohar said. If you're gonna do Davar Lecha Hashem Nafshei Yisad with Nefilat Apayim, you're gonna do it wrong with the wrong kavanah. You're chayav mitah. So we're gonna do Nefilat Apayim, but we're gonna use a different parak of Tehillim. That's what they do. We're gonna get in that in a minute. Now, you're going to see. Sometimes, if you pray with Ashkenazim, when it comes to praying mincha, sometimes they pray in a place where there's no Sefer Torah. So some of them say, when there's no Sefer Torah, we don't do Tachanun. Okay, let's start with the Ramah. The Ramah, in source 31 says, Yesh Amrim, De'eni Filat Apayim, El B'mokem Sheyesh Aron B'Sefer Torah B'tocho. Aval B'loi Zeh, Amrim Techina, B'loi Kisui Ponim, B'chei Nohagim. So the Ramah says, you don't have a Sefer Torah in Aron, you don't go down Nefilat Apayim, but you do say Tachanun. You just don't do Nefilat Apayim. You just don't go down on your hands. Okay?
Who says that?
The Ashkenazim. This is the Ramah. This is the Ramah. That's another story. That's another story. Aaron will say for Torah b'Torah. But Tam, what's the Mishnah says? What would be the reason? Why not do Nefilat Apayim when there's no Sefer Torah there? Why would we think not to do that? But Tam Yeshayim Mishum. The Matzinu Bekra Remez Shenefila Hi Lifnei Aron Hashem. We find in the Psukim in Tanakh that you do Nefilat Apayim falling down on your head when there's a Sefer Torah there. Chidchtiv b'Milchamat Ha'ai, when you have a Milchamas eye with Yehoshua, but it says V'yipol Panav Lifnei Aron Hashem, that he Yipol al Panav, he fell on his face in front of the Aron of Hashem. So you see there was an Aron, and in the Aron is a Torah. So that's when you do Nefilat Apayim, when there's an Aron in a Torah in the Aron. That's where it comes from. The Piskei Tshuva says, now, if there is no Aron and there's no Sefer Torah, Achlo Yidlegu Al Nimrat HaKepitel Ki Meseder Tfilahu Ve'efsher Gam Lo Omer Me'umad. Piskei Tshuva says, same thing as the Ramah said, there's no Sefer Torah, no Aron. You don't mean you skip Tachanun. You say Tachanun. You don't do Nefilat Apayim. You just sit, or you can even stand and say it. Part of Tefillah.
Which part? Which part is Tachanun? Which one is sitting down?
So Ashkenazim don't. Nusach Spar does like we do. They say Hashem Nebegadnu, and then they do the kapitel afterwards. So that whole thing you would do.
Till after Shlois Lamidot?
Everything. The kapitel is the parak Tehillim. The parak Tehillim is the 6th parak of Tehillim that they say. So they wouldn't skip that. You would say it when there's no Sefer Torah. He says you can even say it standing. Then he brings over here he brings over here as follows. Source 34. Uvesider ha'ari leRebbe Shabtai Marashkov katuv vayipol afa pisha ein sefer Torah sham. So in this siddur it says you should go and do nefil tapayim even if there's no sefer Torah there. Ach lo yaseh el mi shehu muchzak b'chasidut u'b'hanagat kabbalah. It's only if you're involved in Kabbalah and Chasidut, then you would put your head down, do nefil tapayim, even if there's no sefer Torah, no Aram there. Sefer Eretz Yisrael, going Rabbi Yechiel Michal to Kaczynski, he writes, Kotav Yerushalayim nohagim nefil tapayim gam bebayit she'ein sham sefer Torah, gam kishe'ein makom kvula tefila. The Tama minhag lipol rak b'makom she'ein sefer Torah, hu al samach haremez b'pasuk v'yipol panav arza lifnei Aron Hashem v'Yerushalayim she'kedushata kedushat olam harei hi kilifnei Aron Hashem. In Yerushalayim, all of Yerushalayim is considered like the Aron of Hashem. The Torah is everywhere in Yerushalayim. Therefore, in Yerushalayim, you don't have a Sefer Torah. You're davening in a house. You're davening in a place that's not Kovei Tefillah. It's not a place where you usually daven. You must still put your head down. It's only in the Yerushalayim proper and not outside the walls. Then he brings down the what we do on Yom Kippur when we say Hakanim v'ha'am, right, ha'omerim, and everyone says Baruch Shem Kavod, and we go down, and like we learned, we go down, you have to have a tablecloth or something in front of your head. You can't go directly down on any floor, even if it's not a stone floor. This is done not because of Nefilat Apayim. It's done because we're saying that they would say the Shem HaMifurash, and that's why we do this bowing. That's why you're allowed to do it even if there's no Sefer Torah there. Now, what about for us Paradim? If there's no Sefer Torah, if there's no Aron, what do we do? So let's take a look in the Yalkut Yosef. This is on page 384 over here. And you can take a guess. You want to take a guess what we do? What do we do?
Yeah.
We do it, right. We do it. He says as follows: V'gam mishananas. We have to remember why we do it. First of all, we don't really do Nefilat Apayim at all. We just sit, right, and we say the supposed to tell him. So there would really be no reason why not to say it.
So how is it supposed to say? Just relaxing.
Just sit. Just sit.
Sadness,
You can. I mean, if you feel it, if you're having a hergish when you're understanding the Perish Milot, then you should definitely. Then you should feel like that. 100%. The guy should know nothing. If a person is davening alone at home. He's like supposed to say vidoy. I feel makom she'ein kavul. Feel ein sham. Sefer Torah. I feel shelo b'shar she'atzivim mitpalin. So he says it fair. No, it's not kavul tefillah. There's no Sefer Torah. We still say everything. By Svaradim, and it'd be positive. We're not really doing the field of time at all. We're not putting our heads down on our hands. So therefore, there'd be no reason why not to say if there's no Sefer Torah. Because the whole thing's based on the remez of a pasuk that says Yeshua fell down in front of the Aron of Hashem. But we're not falling down, so it wouldn't be a reason for Sfaradim not to say Tachanun at that point. And even where it says Ashkenazim, where they wouldn't say it, doesn't mean they don't say it. They say Tachanun, they just don't do Nefil at the time. Now, exactly what they do, and when it happens, I don't know. Sometimes they skip it. They know, they say it. I'm not sure.
If davening by Ashkenazim,
right. Mm-hmm. No, so this is already our custom. But Kamavad is very strong in this, and he says we always do our way when we go there. As long as you're not the Shliach Tzibur, then you have you're not leading the davening for them. You're leading the davening for them. That's a different story. Kamavad says we shouldn't really be leading the davening for them. Let them daven their minhag, their nusach, because you have to change it. He doesn't want us to change it. If you're going to daven, you're going to have to change it to their nusach. You're davening for them. So better not to do that. Also, in cases like on Tanet Tzibur, the Ashkenazim by Mincha, they always read in Haftarah after Shlishi. Yeah. We don't read on Tanet Tzibur Haftarah. So the Yalkut Yosef writes that it's better for us Friday not to take Aliyah Shlishi by the Ashkenazim because we don't say Haftarah. So it's going to come to a shiloh if you're supposed to say the brachot of Haftarah or not. So better not to take the Shlishi. Okay, there's many such things. That's why a person has to know his halachas. You have to know what to do, especially nowadays when we are so intermingled. Sephardi and Ashkenaz and Sephardi. You have to really know what is done at what place. You remember Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, he held that wherever you're davening, you have to follow that nusach. So Ashkenazim say you have to always follow the place that you're davening. For Chacham Ovadia, he takes a whole different approach. He says wherever you're davening, you follow your own nusach. So all right. No, that, according to Moshe Feinstein, that's what he should do. He's here, he should say it like that. According to Chacham Ovadia, if you would be davening in an Ashkenaz shul and you're the only person saying Kaddish, you should really say Sephardic Kaddish. If there are other people saying Kaddish, then you say it with them, then you can say Nusach Ashkenaz or Nusach Sephardic, whichever one they do. But in a lot of the shuls here, if you would try to do a Sephardic Kaddish, they would not be so comfortable with it. So they would want you to do it their way. Yeah, so you have to know what you're doing. Anyway, that's about having a Sefer Torah in the Aron. Now we're gonna come to why the Ashkenazim have a different parak of Tehillim by Tachanun from us. So he brings as follows. First of all, in the box he says, the Rambam, Tur, and Shulchan Aruch do not specify which text or chapter of Tehillim should be recited. The Rambam and the Tur, the early halachic sources, just say we offer Tachanunim. That doesn't say what to say. Today, we have a difference in opinion, right? We say Kapitel 25, Sfaradim say Perik Vav Hey, and Ashkenazim say Perik Vav. So let's see what Piskei Teshuvot says. Uminag Rabim Mibnei Ashkenaz, Api Magen Avram, Shelo Lomar Mizmor LeDavid Elecha Hashem Nafshi Esa, Dal Pi HaZayar HaKadosh, Yesh Sakana Lemot B'Kotzer Yamim, Rahman al-Islam. Because the Zayar says, the person says that David Hashem Nafshi Esa, while doing the field of pipe without kavana, he's going to die young. So we don't want that. With his heart. Therefore, we're going to say kapitel vav, which is Rahum v'Hanun. Vasfaradim nohagim lomar mizmor. Elecha Hashem nafshi yasa. Ach mitam achshash to the Zayar Kadosh. Nohagim she'ein heim noiflim al peneim klal. And that's it. So this is the whole source of why we do what we do and they do what they do. It's all based on the same reason. No one wants to say the Davar Alech Hashem Nafshi Esa with Nefil Tapayim without Kavana. So what do? Do you do Nefil Tapayim and change the kapitel and change the parak, or do you do not do Nefil Tapayim and you say the same parak? And that's the difference of opinions. Okay. So far, so good? Mm-hmm. All right. Now we are on page 330. We're going to look at some of the differences. Another component of Tachanun for Sfaradim and Nusach Sfard. Okay? Nusach Sfard is the Nusach that are used primarily amongst Hasidim. All right? It's basically the Baal Shem Tov, from my understanding, infused Nusach Ashkenaz with Kabbalistic approach, which was a Sephardic approach of davening at that time, and you have Nusach Sfard, which is similar. It's more similar. If you take a look at Sfard, it's more similar to Sephardic than it is to Ashkenaz. Okay, because the way Ashkenaz tefillot are different, the way they set up the tefillot. Okay, they don't skip half. They just don't have certain things. Like they don't say kaveh every day. Ashkenaz doesn't say. They don't say Yom Tovim. They don't say Yom Tov and Shabbat. They say. And so it's a Sfard. Sfard say. Ashkenaz doesn't say Rav Pam. So Tervadat, we daven Nusach Sfard in Tervadat because Rav Shlomo Mendelovich, his whole approach to creating Tervadat in America was to have both of the best worlds. The limud should be the lumdus of Lita, but the varmkeit should be of Chasidus. And that's why we daven Nusach Sfard. And you have a lot of in Tervadat. You have a lot of Chassidus Rebbeim. You have a lot of literature Rebbeim. It's a nice mixture. Yeah. But Rav Pam daven Nusach Ashkenaz himself, and but that was his minhag daven Nusach Ashkenaz. But one day someone saw him saying Kaveh Hashem Chazak V'Tivecha and Inkelukenu, which is not part of Nusach Ashkenaz. It was Nusach Sfard. The yeshiva says it. They said, but you're Nusach Ashkenaz. Why are you saying it? He said, how can I not say it? You know what we're saying here with such powerful words, and everyone's saying it. Why should I not say it? And he would say it also then.
You know what it does take this? Because if a story was put in, you're going to make a mistake.
Also? Okay, let's see here. Okay. Val pi hazoyar kodesh v'chitvei ha'ari That's all. Yesh litradot ulomar yigimel midot sharachamim kodem nefilat hapayim. According to the Ari, according to the Zohar Kodesh, before you start nefilat hapayim, you have to do you gimel midot. You have to say vayavor amonai al panav vayikra amonai kelahum hanun. You're supposed to say that before you do nefilat hapayim. V'yesh nohagim zot rak b'sheni v'chamishi. There are some who only do this on Monday and Thursday. I believe it's just like Ashkenaz. And for us, Sfaradim, and those who daven Nusach Sfard, we do it every single day because we need to do it before we do Nefilat Apayim. So we do that. I mean, we do by Shacharit and by Mincham. Okay, now Ashkenazim do during the Sedichot, they do say Vayavor multiple times during start to make Tshuva. Let's see what Mordechai Eliyahu says about saying the Yugimul Midot. Yomer miyad Yugimul Midot. Once you finish the Vidoy, Shalom V'Gadnu, you say the 13 attributes of mercy. Vayavor Hashem al panav, v'tzarich le'amram le'at uvenachat, k'dei sheyochal lechavem b'pirusham. You have to say it slowly and calmly. This way, you can have idea of what you are saying. Shouldn't rush it through. The Gimel Midot is a very powerful prayer, right? And therefore, you should take your time saying it. Now, what happens if you are home or you're not praying in the minyan? Ein hayachid, Shulchan Aruch says, Ein hayachid, Rashai lomar shlosha esrei midot derech tefilat u'bakashat rachamim. De'davar shev kedusha hem. It's a davar shev kedusha. It's something that needs to be said with 10 people. This has to be said with 10 people. You have to have a minyan. So what do? Aval im bal omram derech kriya be'alma omram. If you're going to say it, but derech kriya, just reading it, then that's okay. You can say it.
How?
So now, the Mishnah Berurah says, what does it mean derech kriya? B'nigun v'ta'amim. It means you have to know the nigun v'ta'amim. Okay? I don't know everything by heart. Also, when you perform, sometimes things fly out of your head. It's always very good to have
it's engraved.
It's good to have it sit there. So let's say you aren't in the shul. You have to know the ta'amim according to Mishnah Berurah, according to the Yalkut Joseph. According to Moshe Feinstein, if you just read it with some sort of tune, you can get away with it and saying that also. But from Mishnah Berurah and the Yalkut Joseph, it seems that you have to say it with the nigun and the ta'amim. So for the nigun and ta'amim would be Vayavor amonai, right? Pastek. Al panav vayikra amonai kel rahum v'hanun el hapayim v'ram chesed ve'emet notzer chesed lalafim notzer avon v'pesha v'chata'a v'nakeh. One more time. Got to charge by the hour now. Vayavor amonai al panav vayikra amonai kel rahum v'hanun el hapayim v'ram chesed ve'emet notzer chesed lalafim notzer avon v'pesha v'chata'a v'nakeh. That's it. Now we're going to see that Moshe Feinstein is going to deal with can you stop here or not? Because this is not the end of the pasuk in the Torah. There's a bigger pasuk. So can you stop over here? So now look, in the next source, in source 40, he brings the psukim. And if you see, it says, and that's not the end of the pasuk. Right? We read this every time in Sibur. So it's really another whole pasuk. And the Masechet Megillah on source 41 says, "Kol psuka the leipsika Moshe on and leipsikum lay." Anywhere Moshe Rabbeinu didn't make a stop, you can't stop.
What are we doing?
So if you're doing it during tefillah, that's one thing. But if you're reading it alone at home and you're saying, "I'm reading it with derech kriya," so maybe you should say the whole pasuk. So let's see. So let's see the Igros Moshe. Let's see. Davar you'd give him midot beyachid. Ha'ikesh yomer kol pasuk. Al ribiim. According to Moshe Feinstein, since you're reading the Gimel Midot, you're reading it as an individual because you're not in the shul. You're not saying it as part of the shul. In the shul, you can say it up until Vinakeh, because it's part of prayer. But when you're reading it alone, you're saying, I'm reading it, I'm reading it. I'm just reading it. If you're reading it, you can't just stop there. So, you cannot say it as Tachanunim like you read it in the shul. You have to read it like you're reading in the Torah. Shem Darko, this is our Moshe's Chiddush here, from what I see. Shem Darko b'kriyat p'sukei Torah b'tamim b'nigun haragel tzarich lamer b'nigun ahu. If usually you read Sukkim in the Torah with the proper tamim, then you have to do V'yavor with the proper tamim. V'em kishalayimad p'sukei Torah kari oitam b'nigun acher sheyor tenaka lefanav rashai likra b'nigun shalim p'sukim sherugo shelo yireh kemitpal. Because it's going to look like he's not davening, but rather he's reading it. So Moshe Mine says if you're reading it, you can read it anyway, any tune that you usually read, right? As long as you're reading it with some tune. Mishnah Berurah didn't say that. Mishnah Berurah said you have to read it b'nigun v'tamim. The Aguirre says you read it b'nigun v'tamim. It seems to be a chiddush over here that you can read it in any way that you read it.
Anytime.
Anyway.
He's got to finish the whole pasuk.
And according to Moshe Feinstein, you have to finish the whole pasuk. According to Moshe Feinstein, you have to finish the whole pasuk because you cannot stop anywhere. So for Ashkenazim so far, we see.
No, over here in Tzivu.
And the city doesn't have it.
We don't have it here.
So we're going to see, according to us, we don't have to go to the end of the pasuk. Let's get to the next.
Okay.
Hey. Oh, listen, Sfaradim always have it easier.
That's what we do. 40 days.
Except
Jewish.
except when it comes to Bishul Yisrael, because then we're more machmer Bishul Yisrael by Chalak Bet Yosef meat. We're also more machmer by that. But
for eating.
that's where the joke goes. The joke goes in for Ella, right? So I used to have work with in Romanes. I used to work with the doctor, Dr. Shevlin. Live and be well, nice guy. I remember one year, it was right before Slichot. He comes knocking on my office door. I said, "No, what's going on, Dr. Shevlin?" I thought we talked about a patient. He just said, "I want to ask you if it was worth it." I said, "Worth it? What do you mean worth it?" He says, "Now you're going to be saying Slichot for 40 days. It's because you ate rice on Pesach. Was it worth it, the rice on Pesach? So now you can say Slichot, but wait." I said, 100%. If I can eat my rice on Pesach, I'll take the 40 days. Obviously, he was joking. But let's see what the Yechavedat, the Yacham Ovadia. Usually down with right. Okay, let's see what Yechavedat says. L'chein, tzarich lomer shal kol panim gam hayachid shekoreim b'ta'amim. You see, the Yechavedat, the Chacham says you're reading them b'ta'amim. Nichret mechshavato sheikar mitarto lahasker midol rachamim derech tefila v'kasha. V'lechein rashai nisayim l'tivat benakeh. According to Chacham Ovadia, even though you're reading it with the ta'amim because you're reading it, but you're reading it not out reading it. You're reading it because you want to do it tefillah. If you're doing tefillah, then you can stop there. But it's not tefillah. You're reading it, but you're reading it because you're trying to do tefillah. So therefore, you can stop there. It's like I'm reading it.
Combination.
Yeah, he's saying the best of both worlds here. It's davening, but it's not. It's kriya, so I can stop it. Now, in the box here, he brings an interesting chiddush from the Ben Ish Chai. He brings from the Ben Ish Chai. I don't know where he gets it from the Ben Ish Chai, but he writes over here. The Ben Ish Chai suggests this possible reason. He says two novel ideas. First of all, he says that if you say one word in a pasuk, that's not considered stopping in the middle of the pasuk. Stopping in a place that Moshe Rabbeinu didn't stop means you're reading most of the pasuk, not just one word. But v'nakeh is in the middle of the pasuk. So how does he do that? He says the second thing is the ta'am, the atnachta, right? Atnach. What's atnach? It's the middle of the pasuk to stop. So the Ben Ish Chai says you can stop with v'nakeh. Why? Because the word the chata'a is a atnach. And then the word v'nakeh is just one word. So if I'm just reading one word in the pasuk, it's not that I'm stopping in the middle of the pasuk. And an atnach is a stop. Therefore, I can do up to v'nakeh. That's the Ben Ish Chai's teretz to this. Why we can do that when you're davening alone is a one person. You can read it with ta'amim and stop at v'nakeh. Okay. The Piskei Teshuvot brings a little more over here. And he says as follows. When a person is praying in a tzibor, af im hitmahema vehitzibor kvar omrim higil midot v'hu adayin lo hitchil kol zman shelo yisayimol rob etzibor lo omrim higil midot yachol hitchil v'lo omrim v'negrar achreim v'shafir dami. as long as their people are still in the middle of a Yavor, so they're somewhere in Erech HaPayim Chesed Ve'emet, and now you're coming in and starting the Yavor, that's okay, he says. But then you should say B'ta'amim. My question is, so I remember, I don't have it here. I don't have the teretz for it right now either. My question, maybe you've seen it somewhere. When we say that we can read B'ta'amim, is that for all the V'ya'avors, or is that just for the first V'ya'avor? So on Sheni V'Hamishi, right, on Mondays and Thursdays, or when we're doing Selichot.
All of them. All of them.
I don't know.
You just said.
I know what I'm saying. Right.
So you need 10.
But we're saying the reason why you can read it because you just stopped reading it. And we're saying you're reading it.
No, you're taking a combination of 2 words. Remember, you just said it.
But if I'm saying the Chavish, all these other V'yavors, according to what you're saying, so you should be able to each one to say B'tamim. Someone once told me that only the first one you can. I don't know for sure.
Oh, the same thing with Slichot.
Say the Slichot, you can say all the Yavors with the Tamim. As if you don't have a minyan, you can say this with Tamim. Okay, fine.
No,
That's what the Tzibur says.
Without minyan. Huh? With the Amin, without minyan, you can do with the Amin.
Right. If you're not in a minyan, we said that you can say the Shlosheh Samidov with the Tamim, because then you just stop reading it.
2 ways of you can wait and then do it afterward, right? After when we have the minyan, okay, go backward. But though you don't have a minyan, you know you're not going to have a minyan, you can continue. Okay, you did the slichot, you did the Shlosheh Midot with the Amin.
So if you have a minyan, no tamim?
Well,
if minyan,
you don't need the Tamim.
you don't need the Tamim.
You don't need the Tamim. You can just read it regular.
All the time with the minyan.
By the way, okay, can I just say this?
Yeah, go ahead.
And usually, even when we have minyan, we say Tamim.
Not entirely.
No, I'm saying most of the time, if you pay attention,
Not the entire pasuk.
Shagub bepicha.
You say no tzechesed. Most people don't do that.
No, but I'm saying
You missed the tam.
No, I'm just saying miss the time is fine.
No,
when a person reads the Torah, he reads all the time.
he should.
But he doesn't.
According to the Maseches Megillah, the Ta'amim is the whole story, right? The all the story of all the Kedusha, all the secrets, all the Yisod is all in the Ta'amim.
So now, do I have to bring him back if he made him?
No,
he didn't. Oh,
you don't. But still,
so we're on the same page.
I hear. Anyway, he says, "V'chein mo'amed hu be'emtza amir avidoy oy el harpaim u'mishar shelo yespik lagiel ligamidah ad shekvar yigmir tzibur lamir yigamidah yavsev yomim tzibur." Oh, so you're in the middle of Tachanun. In the middle of some prayer, you're saying Kel Rachum V'Chanun or something like that, and they're getting up to Yigam Midot. You should Yafsik V'Yomer Tzibur V'Achar Yamshich V'Yigmor V'Hechen Shoiches V'Loy Loimer Shuv Acher Kach Yigam Midot. So he says over here that if you're in middle, that you should say the Yigam Midot with everybody, because that's the proper way of doing it. The Alkut Yotiv notes that the same certainly applies between Chazer Shasat and Vidui, as well as between Vidui and Tachanun. Yeah, he also writes that even the words of Torah should not be spoken. This is when we're talking not to be mafsik between Shemona Esrei and Tachanun. Okay, I wrote down over here 2 halachot in the Alkut Joseph that I wanted to share. This is in his Siman 131. That's the Siman of Shulchan Aruch of the Filat Apayim, and Sif 18 and 19 in the Alkut Joseph. And he says here as follows. Someone is praying in the shul and he hears Yigim Midot from the tzibur. He's supposed to stop and say it with the tzibur.
That's if he needs to. But
no, even if he's not needing to. He says, "Varakim ninsav sukkit zimra or b'kriyat shema or b'choteh lo yasik." Yeah, he should get up and say. He should get up and say. 1 second. Ve'emnam im amru vidu b'slichot u'mitpal miyad shachrit u'mincha chorzin amru vidu b'tfilah sharei avazman me'az amrit vidu b'slichot. Okay. Ein amru vidu b'yigil midot v'nafilat apayim b'layla v'komokim rashayim amru mincha. Okay, about mincha. Af achar shkiyat hama. You can even say Tachanun after shkiyat hama. B'toch yil gimel dakot mechatzi mezman hashkiyah b'shat zmaniyot. The 13 and a half seasonal minutes, which according to Chacham Ovadia, this is the Ben Mashot, right? After that, it's already considered tzit, according to Chacham Ovadia. after 13 and a half seasonal minutes. Shuzman banish mashot. He says, but if the tzibur says, oh, it's after shkia, you can't say it, and lasot mahroket. Don't make a mahroket. If it's already after shkia and they don't want to say it, don't make a mahroket about it. והמשיכו בתפילת מנחה עד הלילה. יש אומרים שאין לומר קדיש להתקבל בלילה. Let's say a person was praying mincha and it ended up being late, and it's after 13 and a half seasonal minutes according to Chamabadia. You shouldn't say קדיש להתקבל. ויש אומרים שמותר לומר קדיש גם אחר צאת הכוכבים. וכן לקדינה. And the din is that you could say תתקבל after nightfall. ועל כל פנים לכתחילה יזהרו שלא יבואו לידי כך. But don't make yourself in such a situation. So don't finish up mincha after Tzedek Kochavim. You had a question.
You start on together with Chazan. He's reading fast, and you already vayavor, but you still.
So you should say Vayavor.
That's what I do.
That's what it says.
You stop in the middle.
Stop in the middle and say Vayavor, and then go back to what you're doing. Yes.
And then when I'm gonna come to my Vayavor,
Don't say Vayavor. Skip it and go to the next thing. You already said it.
Huh?
Yeah, you already said it. The main thing is to say Vayavor with 10 people, which is Siddur Shiv Kedoshim.
Sometimes I don't make up when it comes to it's Monday and Thursday. They have Hashem Munavadu, right?
I do.
And then you have what do you call it?
The Vayavor is a couple
Right,
times.
Vayavor come again. So I don't finish the whole thing, and he's already up to Vayavor.
Yeah.
So I stop where I am. I'm gonna go again. Vayavor Hashem
I'm
Panai.
serious, he's faster than me.
Yeah,
No, I'm serious.
Look, for example, over here on Monday and Thursday,
I know.
you have
but
over here.
nobody
You look,
reads
look.
faster
El
than
Melech
you.
Hashem Tzedek Rachamim, right? I sometimes skip it. I go straight to Vayavo. I didn't finish. I didn't finish only Hashem Navadu, El Berzotenu, and then he comes Vayavo Hashem Al-Balaz. So I jump.
Yeah, as long as you do Vayavors together, that's the main thing. Yalkut Yosef says, "Ein lahasik b'dibur." Okay, we're going to source 45, page 333. Ein lahasik b'dibur ben tefillah tefillah tefayim. Person should not speak between tefillah and tefillah tefayim. Va'af im mitalel b'beto b'yachid. Ein lo lahasik ben tefillah shmona esrei, page 333, source 45. Ben tefillah shmona esrei letchina. You should not speak. Shakol ketefillah arichtahi. We know it's one big tefillah. We saw it from Sefta B'Metzia. All the answering of tefillah happens in tefillah tefayim. ועל ידי שמפסיק ועוסק בדוברים אחרים, בין תפילה לנפילת אפיים, אין תחנתו שמתחנן מתפילת אפיים מתקבל כל כך, ואפילו בדברי תורה אין להעסיק בין חזר לבידוי. You should not even stop בדברי תורה. ואם אירע שהפסיק בדיבור בין תפילה לבידוי, כמו כן יפול לפניו, אך אין זה רצוי כל כך כמו מי שלא הפסיק. ועל פי הסוד, according to Kabbalah, אין להפסיק בין תפילה לבידוי, אף בשהיה בעלמא, even stam waiting, just waiting seconds, you shouldn't let. Just right away to be able to find. That's the Anna. No stopping in between. You can pray Shemona Esrei here and say Tachanun outside, but there shouldn't be any hefsek in between. Okay, now we're going to come to everyone's most exciting part. The most exciting part. When not to say Tachanun. Right. Now, we already learned that the whole power of tefillah is in the tefillah.
Tomorrow morning, Bezrat Hashem is going to be a
brit. Right. So what do we do?
The first minyan, the second minyan. They're going to be davening.
So we're going to see. We're going to come to Halacha L'Maaseh right now.
Or they don't see that. Yeah.
We're going to see Halacha L'Maaseh. We're going to go according to the Yalkut Yosef.
Okay.
I know people do different things. You know, my Mahalach already, I go with the book in front of me. It's black and white. Yalkut Yosef said this. I know if I come to the Shemayim, they say, why you did X, Y, and Z.
You got to go pick up your daughter after.
Oh, you want to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's going to be right back.
You listen to, you're going to send to
Okay. I say to someone tells me, oh, but no one else is knowing this way. I say, I'm okay, but the Yalkut Yosef says to do that. I know if after 120 I come to Shemayim, they say, why you did this way? Like, okay, he said to do it. What do you want from me? I know I'm going to be in good hands. That for sure. I'm not worried about that. Okay. So that's why I know I go with this opinion. I'm not going to have any trouble. Anyway, let's see. Okay. First of all, we don't say Tachanun on Yom Tov and Shabbat. Why don't we say Tachanun Yom Tov and Shabbat? Tov and Shabbat, Simcha. If you're Tapayim is a little sad, you're getting sad, you don't do it. That's Chacham Ovadia's whole reason why not to say Vayavor in front of the Sefer Torah for all the Yom Tovot, right? All the Yom Tovim, we don't say it. People say it. Right? People fight with me. Every year, people always calling me. I know it says a lot of things. Okay, we go according to Chacham Ovadia, and he said not to say only Yom Tov you could say it on. It's Yom Kippur because the whole Yom Kippur is just. I told him the famous story of this, right? Avram Chaim, you might remember, we had one Rosh Hashanah. This guy came up from downstairs from Or Natan. He came and he saw that we didn't do with the Yavor when we took out the Sefer Torah. And the Amunai 3 times that people do. and he called me after Shana, and he told me, you didn't do good. The minhag by Bukhara, by the Bukharian Jews, to always say it, they always did it, da 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 da. He's telling me I wasn't doing right, Don't come out, he said not to do it. He says, no, you still have to do it. Ask this rabbi, ask that rabbi, they're all going to say to do it. He said, I'm going to come Yom Kippur and watch. I told him, please come. He came Yom Kippur, and I said it, because Chabad says, Yom Kippur is all about Shoshas and Milah. So you can say, so he calls you up after Yom Kippur. He says, Chazaku Baruch, you listened to me, and you said it. I didn't tell him that I didn't listen to you. I didn't say anything. I just said, okay, shkoyach. Well, I listen to everybody that screams at me. So you do what it says. Anyway, so we come from the Bet Yosef. The Bet Yosef says, "V'yom chuppah ein noflim al paneim b'knesset sheyesh b'choton ve'ein omrim bidu." You don't do it during Yom by Yom Chuppah. He says by Yom Chuppah. Okay, he's not saying Sheva Brachot. So you'll see that on the day of the Chuppah. But Yom Hamila ein noflim al paneim b'knesset shesham Hamila. ויש שאין מונעים מליפול פניהם בכנסת ששם המילה ואם הוא שני או חמישה אומרים בידוי מה שאין כן בחופה.
That's right.
The Mondays and Thursday you should stay even if you're having a break. That's what he's saying, right? But not by a chuppah. Chuppah even on Thursday you wouldn't stay. B'shem Rabbi Yitzchak bar Yehuda Mitzati ויום המילה אין נופלים על פניהם בכנסת אשר שם המילה ואם הוא שני או חמישי אין אומרים תחנון ולא הורחום ואין נופלים על פניהם. So there's different opinions by Amila what to do. Shulchan Aruch.
Pay attention. It says the Knesset. In other words, in
the
place.
shul. The Knesset.
The Knesset
is a synagogue, no?
The Knesset is
the gathering.
In a place of gathering.
Right, but it means shul. It means a synagogue.
Right, in the shul. It doesn't mean this necessarily in this minyan.
Ah, yes, that's another opinion. You want to see that. That's right. Shulchan Aruch says, "No, shlo lipo apaneim lo b'beit ha'avel, lo b'beit ha'hatan." In beit ha'avel, one of the reasons why you don't want to do it in beit ha'avel is because he already has so much problems going on. You don't want to be more sad and cause more midat hadin by him. That's one reason. Another reason is because, like on Tisha B'av, we said that a day of Avilut is also a moed. It's also considered like a Yom Tov, a day of Avilut. So therefore, you wouldn't say it also in his house. The lower beit hatan, the lower beit Knesset, b'yom milah, and not the beit Knesset on the day of Milah. What does that mean? The lower kishiyesh shem hatan, and now when there is a hatan there. Mishnah Berurah says, "V'lo yishkiyesh shem hatan." Mishum the mitzvah l'smoach imo, a simcha nimshechet l'chon l'vim elav. So it's supposed to be b'simcha with the chatan, so it's like a yom tov for him. So everybody becomes potter from saying tachanun. The Ramah says about yom hamila, uva yom hamila she'ein omrim tachanun. That it. Listen to the Ramah says dafka shacharit shemalin as hatinuk. This is only the shacharit where afterwards they're making the brit. Avav mincha. Even if the tinuk is there by mincha, omrim tachanun. Ma she'en came b'hatan. She'en omrim tachanun kol hayom. Kishpadalin etzel hatan. V'lo mikrei hatan el b'yom shenichnas l'chuppah. And the Ramah says the hatan is only the day of chuppah. So according to the Ramah, by a brit, only in the morning, right where the brit is going to be, that's when you don't say tachanun. And the hatan, when he's there, you don't say it. But by mincha, even if the baby was there, you still would say tachanun. It's according to the Ramah. Okay, what does the Mishnah Berurah say? The Mishnah Berurah says v'dat the marshal, and the bach and the taz. They ain't oimrin k'mishpalim etzel hatinuk. You don't say it when you're praying next to the tinuk. Uve'el yerabba echruya the imit palim mincha bebeit tinuk koydem asuda or beemtza suda ain't no tachanun. Aval acher bekatamazon omrin tachanun. Achen katav derech hayim. So it depends if the suda is going on or not. The kasav chay adam the chol zek k'mishpalim etzel hatinuk. Aval kishmitpalim bebeit acher. Aval bishabal brit sham omrin tachanun afilu kodem asuda. If the child is not there, if the tinuk is not there, only the moel is there, or the father is there, you still would say. However, the bali simcha, the moel, the standard, and the av, they don't say tachanun and mincha privately. Because it's yom tov for them. Okay, so this I actually found out one day. I'm praying in Young Israel, and there was a brit that morning, and the father was there. And they said tachanun. I wanted to say not to say tachanun because Faradim we wouldn't say. We're going to see the Yaakov Yosef says not to say a whole day if the av or the sandak or the moil is there. But the Kohen Ashkenazim, the Chai Adam brings over here that he would say, the shul would say, but the father wouldn't say. Yeah. Shenichlas al-chuppah. Oh, so Mishnah Berurah says it was manenu nohegin she'ein noflin kol zayin yimei hamishta. Today it became all Sheva Brachot, right? Because the Beit Yosef said is Yom Chuppah. The Ramah said Yom Chuppah, the day of the wedding, not the whole Sheva Brachot. Today, however, it's the whole 7 days. And then he brings mitzpal and koim she'chuppah going to be a chuppah me'at kodim le'erev b'yom aleph. Ain't no rim tachanun ad yom aleph haba. Me'at kodim le'erev. B'davka im hayachatan bachor or kala betula. Aval almon shnasa almona ein zenoy rak gimel yomim v'chein hadin ve'vehu rahum. Now, he here in the Tzurba Rabbanan doesn't bring the piskei of the Yakut Yosef when it comes to Brit and it comes to Chuppah. So I brought over here 131:20. He brings over here Shahatan noheg shevet yimei chuppah b'simcha u'mishteh v'samach et isho asher lakach v'nechshavim etzlo k'yamim tovim lefikach ein orim behem bidu v'nefilat apayim ומשפללים הקהל בבית החתן, או כשהחתן בא לבית הכנסת להתפלל עם הציבור, כל הקהל אין אומרים וידוי נפילות אפיים בכל שבט ימי המשתה לכבוד של חתן. You don't do תחנון מנחה שחרית if the חתן is there. But he says, אולם בשחרית של יום החופה, אף מי שקדושים לחופה נכרים באו ביום, כל משקת החמה, בכל מקום עדיין אין תורת חתן עליו. צריכים לומר וידוי נפילות אפיים. אבל מנחה כשהוא סמוכה לחופה, he says that when we say the day of chuppah, you don't say Tachanun. That's only if the chuppah is happening right now. So if he's coming to pray shacharit and the wedding is going to be in the afternoon, you do say Tachanun in the shul. Only when he's actually a chatan for those 7 days, then you don't say it. He also brings, interestingly, what happens if the kala is in shul? The chatan is not there. The collar shows up. We know the collar's there. We know.
Still, what?
We know. Do you say it or not?
No.
Ain't poteret et hakahal omer minot tefayim. No, because the simcha is on the chatan, not on the collar. And therefore, yeah, it says you don't. We would say Tachanun. If the collar is in the shul, we would say Tachanun. Only if the chatan is not in the shul. No, it's not that you don't. Look, it's not. She doesn't have the Torah simcha on the chatan on her. Okay.
Where's hers?
Then I put down 25. Let's see what I put here. 25. That says as follows. Kishiyesh milah. Listen to Yaakov Joseph. Here's tomorrow. Kishiyesh milah b'te knesset. Ein lomer sham viduni filipayim b'yom hamilah. Va'afilu mitpalim sham kama minyanim b'zeh harzeh. Kulam poturim milomar bidu v'nefilat apayim. So according to the Yakut Yosef, if you're going to have a brit in the shul that day, all the minyanim are potter from saying bidu v'nefilat apayim.
Good to go.
So this is Siman Kuf Lam and Aleph, Siv Chav Hein, the Yakut Yosef. If you want to show it tomorrow. Avia ben, okay. Avia ben shenimtza bet knesset b'yom milah, or shenimtza sham sandik, or hamor. Alpha pisha milah naset b'bayit. Even if they're going to make the milah later on in the house, kol hatzibor shemitpalim imo bet knesset poterim milomar bidu minifet apayim lechvod balei habrit. So even if they're not making the brit in the shul, just the sandik or the moil or the Avia ben is davening, then they're potter from saying the apayim. Yom tov shalahemu. The Yom Tov for them, therefore that would be potter from saying doing the filter time. It seems to be only that minyan though.
That's like the chatan is if he attends the
Yeah.
minyan,
Right.
then
So similar to the sandak, he's a Baal mitzvah. The mitzvah is not happening there. The Baal mitzvah, so that minyan will become potter. Malkum shenagu she'im yesh milah b'te knesset achat. It's actually a minhag that says Malkum shenagu she'im yesh milah b'te knesset achat. Ein omrim bidu nefitapayim bekol batei knesset shebeir. That all the shuls in the city don't say Tachanun that day. Av bisha ein minhag yafeh mikol makom ein mechot biyadam sheyesh lahem amash yismechu.
Everyone.
If all the shuls decide not to say Tachanun on the day, there's going to be a big milah on one shul. They have what to rely on. Aval malkom shadayin lo nagu kain k'mo be'ir hadasha ein lahem lo noah kain. Shul minhag geruah. Ve'en data poskim nochahem lo. The poskim are not so happy with this, but there is such an opinion that if you have a brit, the whole town cannot say. Listen to the next one over here about Brit Milah. Bet Knesset. She'osim sham milah baboker. If you have a shul that's making a brit milah in the morning, mishum shezizim makdimim lemitzvot, lo yomrum viduim fitapayim gam betfilat mincha. Even in mincha, now you don't say fitapayim. Ho v'mokem ahu adayim monochim hakiseh shel Yahu Navi malach habrit והפרוכת שעליו, ואור קידושת מצווה המילה חופף עליו כל היום. לפיכך אין נופלים על פניהם כל היום כולו, וכן הורה למעשה כמה גדי עולם. And many גדי עולם paskin this way, that if you have a brit milah in the shul that day, all the tefillot shaharit, all the tefillot mincha, you don't need to do it tefillot. That's what he says to do. That's what he says to do. גם כשהמילה נעשית בבוקר, אם נמצא בתפילת המנחה, אחד מבעלי הברית, דהיינו אבי הבן או מולו הסדק, אין לו מבין לפי הפעם, שקדושת ושמחה המצווה נמשכת כל היום, והם מאחרים את המילה עד סמוך למנחה, ואם מאחרים את המילה עד סמוך למנחה, יש שם שצריך לומר בית הפעם בשחרית, ורק במנחה שהתפילה הסמוכה לבית המילה, לא יאמנו בית הפעם. אבל יש נוהגים שבכל אופן, אין אומר בית הפעם גם בשחרית, ואין לשנות מפני המחלוקת. He said, even if you're going to make the brit later in the afternoon in that shul, even in Shaharit already, you don't say Minun Fil Tapayim. As long as that day you're going to have a Milah in the shul, the whole shul comes part up from Minun Fil Tapayim according to the Yalkut Yosef.
All day.
All day. All day. Even if you did it at Mincha, Shaharit is part. So he says.
Oh.
Yeah.
If you didn't Shachrit, Mincha and Arvit Patur?
Is Mincha also be part?
Arvit also?
You're not having Minun Fil Tapayim. He just wants to be part from something. Okay. Right, so that's on the Brit Milah. It's a very big Hidushim from the Yalkut Yosef. Okay, now, what about Bar Mitzvah boys? What about Bar Mitzvah boys? So then Yabir Omer, Child Sheshuva, Chamavadia says, Neshalti, I was asked, Odat Mashan Hagim Shalom Lomar Tachanun and Hutapayim Kishayesh Bar Mitzvah Bet Knesset. Minhag Bitikin. Is it a minhag and is it a custom? Do we have a source for it? Not to say Tachanun and the Katabayim for Bar Mitzvah, because Bet Yosef brought down Chuppah and Brit Milah. He didn't talk about Bar Mitzvah. So what do we do now? So he has here a long tshuva. He brings here, I saw that the Marshal writes in the Yam Shel Shloimeh that the meal one makes for Bar Mitzvah is seemingly the biggest Sudat Mitzvah one can make. In addition, one can mention the words of the Zayar in Parsha Mishpatim. On the day he turns 13 years old, a sage is called a son of the Holy One, blessed is he. When David Melech got to the Pasuk, and he said, Hashem said to me, you are my son. This day, Ani Hayom Yilatich, this is about Bar Mitzvah. This Sudat Mitzvah for Bar Mitzvah. So therefore, based on the words of the Marshal, you have something about Sudat Mitzvah. Now we can indeed say that Bar Mitzvah boy on the day of his 13 can exempt the congregation from Tachanun and Filat Apayim. He said, I saw this from Rav Hagon Aaron ben Shimon, and the custom of Israel is Torah. And the basis of this is similar to a Chatan. He brings from Rabbi Mahari Alfiya in Siach Yitzchak. He says that he heard this was not the custom at the time of the Rishon Tzion Yisab Berachav, but nevertheless, he says that there are those who admit to be doing the Kotapayim, and they have what to rely on. The Mishpatzet Uziel also writes that the later generation had a custom not to say Bidun Kotapayim in honor of a bar mitzvah, in order to increase the love for the mitzvah of tefillin. Somehow, when the boy sees you're not saying Tachanun on that day, it gives him an increased love for tefillin. And we want him to have an increased love, so he becomes a person who puts on tefillin, and not like a person who doesn't put on tefillin. He brings to Rav Shalom Mashash as well, that the custom is spread all over, not to say Tachanun on a day of bar mitzvah. So it comes out, so according to Chamuvadia, then it comes on a bar mitzvah day, you don't say Tachanun. Then he brings over here the Tzitz Eliezer. Tzitz Eliezer in Shalos Teshuva, he writes that Shekasher Shedavar Zeh Sheloi Loimer Tachanun Yom Bar Mitzvah En Lo Yisod B'Divrei HaPoskim HaRishonim VaAchronim. There is no Yisod in this. You have to say Tachanun on a day of Bar Mitzvah, according to the Tzitz Eliezer. Barak Chadashim Mekarov Ba'u Hitchilu Lahanig Ken. כאן, וכי ידוע בדבר זה לשמם שלא יאמר תחנון נגדם בגלל החומים, כל אלה שהיה. And everyone is happy to follow a slightest excuse for not saying Tachanun, right? So he says no sharish for this. And he says this is what they said, that if you don't say Tachanun, the mitzvah boy is going to say, oh, you're not saying Tachanun for me. I'm going to wait to fill in from now on. He says that's foolishness. This has never heard such a thing. Where do you get such a thing? He says the Mo'elam lo shamanusha she'i amir Tachanun hetzil yelad bar mitzvah shlo yemek karkafta lo manach tefillin. Says it doesn't make any sense. Or shelo tzrichim or shelo mahani. It's not necessary. It doesn't work. Therefore, he says that this is the custom and he shouldn't change it. So according to the Tzitz Eliezer, on the day of Bar Mitzvah, you should say Tachanun. They have a mahloket when it comes to Bar Mitzvah day. Say Tachanun or not say Tachanun. For us, Faradim, Chamavaji already paskin for us, and we do not say Tachanun on the day of Bar Mitzvah. Ashkenazim, many of them follow the Tzitz Eliezer and the Ramah and the Mishnah Berurah. They never mentioned anything about Bar Mitzvah. They only talked about Chuppah and Milah. Therefore, Ashkenazim, they most likely would say on the day of Bar Mitzvah, they would say Tachanun. However, he writes over here that many Hasidim have the custom not to recite Tachanun for a Bar Mitzvah boy, and he brings the Piskei Teshuvot. Piskei Teshuvot, source 53, page 339. V'hinei al piruach dvarim elu nishtarishu minhagim shonim lahakel be'emirat Tachanun b'zmanei simcha shonim. There are many kulot when it comes not to say Tachanun for simcha. Going b'simchot pidyon haben, similar to pidyon haben. As here, I'm going to stop there for a second and read from the Yalkut Yosef. B'yom she'orchim pidyon haben, afilu im avi haben nimtza beit knesset, yesh lomer b'idu b'tachanun keragil. You should say it regularly. Ve'emnam im orchim et sudat pidyon haben b'tzaharayim, u'mitpalim b'makom ha'sudat tzkat mincha, yochlim la'akal shelo lomar b'idu b'tfilat zu. So if you're going to do mincha at the place you're doing the sudat pidyon haben, according to Chamavadia, you could skip Tachanun.
In the morning, what?
In the morning, you would say. If he's davening mincha in a shul, he should say. If he's davening in a place you're doing the seudah, then you don't say the pidyon haben. The Piskei Teshuvah says further about Hasidim. They say where you're davening their mincha, like Chamavaji said, and he's putting on the tefillin for the first time. Also, like Chamavaji said in the day of Bar Mitzvah, you can skip Tachanun. So Chasim also do that. If you're having a Siyam Masechta, we also know if you're doing a Siyam Masechta right after the davening, you can also skip Tachanun. Or if you're doing Achnasat Sefer Torah and you're having a Su'udah there, also you skip Tachanun there. Now, this is a very big thing by Hasidim. We're going to see the Chamavaji did not agree to this part. Also, when you have Hilulah Shel Tzadik, כשמתאספים יחד אנשים הנוהים לאורו בכל ימות השנה הוגים בתורתו. He says, the Piskei Teshuvah says the whole year they're learning from his Torah. וביום פטירתו מדליקים נרות ועורכים סעודה לכבודו. וכן הילות הרשב"י, similar to the הילות הרשב"י, Rishon Bar Yochai, like Ba'omer, שכתוב ברמה אין נופלים. They don't do נפילת אפיים. So Piskei Teshuvot says, when it comes to Hilulah Shel Tzadik, and everyone is gathering Chavod of the Tzadik, and it's a tzaddik that they learn from all year round, and now they're doing it. They have what to be l'smoke to be makel and to not say Tachanun. So Rav Shmuel last week said a nice joke about the Hasidim are not saying Tachanun. You want to say it again about the every day there was a tzaddik? I should say it. No, it's a good joke. It brings out a nice point. He said that there was a shul that every single day, they had the luach of all the tzaddikim that died. So every day they didn't say Tachanun. And then one day there was nothing on the luach. There was no tzaddik that was nifter that day. So everyone thought they're going to say Tachanun, and they were looking at they came to Tachanun and looking at the manig of the shul. And after a few seconds, he said Kaddish. So they said, what happened? There was no. He says, one day that there's no Tachanun, that's also that there's no tzaddik that's nifter. That's a simcha not to say also. So he didn't say it again. However, let's see what Chacham Ovadia writes about not saying when there is a Yom Hilula.
הוא אומר, והבסטייל לא עושים תחנון, אנחנו אומרים שעושים.
One second. Here we go. Here we go. Let's look at Sif Lamed Gimel. Hanohagim, Shalai Lamer Binu Ketapayim B'Yom Pekudas Shana. V'Hanohagim Shalai Lamer Binu Ketapayim B'Yom Pekudas Shana. Yom HaPetira Shel Tzadikim Ba'admorim. U'Mavim Raya Miyom Lamed Gimel Lo'imer. Sharmim Shehu Yoim Shel Petat Rishon Bar Yochai. Vein Amar Mutachanun. Minag Ta'ut Hu Beyadam. Chamabaji says this is a mistake in their hands. Ve'ein lahem al mashi yismachu. There's nothing for them to rely on. Shada adarabba. Yom pitat tzadikim hu yom sarah etochecha ve'yesh shemit'anim bo b'yom. People who fast on that day. Ve'od she'ein lecha yom b'meshach kol hashana shelo nifteru bo migdalei Yisrael morei Yisrael. If you're going to look at all the tzadikim and you're going to go on the calendar, you're going to have no day. Then you're going to say Tachanun ve'im came but lanu legamed din eminat bidun v'tapayim. Ad forever. You're not going to say anything about the Bayim. Every day is another tzaddik, another admor, another gadol. And he says, "V'shani yom gimel, yom lamed gimel lo'imer." Yom lamed gimel lo'imer is different. It's in a different category. Shu yom hilulash Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai kimivar ba'achronim, and it's basically a day that Shimon Bar Yochai brought the Zohar and brought the mitakenet ha'olam. He fixed the world. He brought the nistar, Torah's nistar. He brought it out. That's a different reason why we're not saying it, not for any admor, not any gadol. He says just for that day. Right? I used to pray in a shul in Borough Park. It was right next to Mamani, so I used to go in the morning and daven there. Hasidic shul, and they actually took the luach. They had the weekly luach. They came out, and the back of the pamphlet it says which admor was there. They looked. They didn't say. So what would I have to do? Is it going to tzaddik v'admor? You cannot argue with them when I go over and tell them we have to say. They're not going to listen. He himself has to say and vidui. This is not considered. Yeah, you have to say in the field of ever. Oh, at Mincha they don't say. We would have to say. We would have to say. According to Chamabadia, you would have to say.
I go Moroccan shul.
According to Chamabadia, we would have to say.
Every Yosef they don't say.
Where?
Every Yosef they don't say.
By where?
Moroccan.
That's their minhag. They have what the
I have to say.
If you go according to the way I go, according to Chamabadia, then you would say. If your minhag is to go like them, then you wouldn't say. My recommendation, as you know, is to always go for Chamabadia. Right. You still say it. No, we didn't say not to say it. You made a half say you still say it. You say you should still say it. It's not as powerful, but you still say it. Right. So you would answer Kaddish. No, you'd say it then, right after Kaddish. Okay. They're saying whatever they're saying, and you're going to be saying. So then you'll answer Kaddish again, and then you'll finish up when you can. You have to do it. Yeah, you have to do it Keseder. Yeah, 100%. Okay, that is. He doesn't say that now. He just is like Weimer. Teres Nister versus Teres Nigla, right? Okay. He says he should be hakal unless he has a tradition here, except for the person actually celebrating this joyous cycles, who's allowed to not recite Tachanun on that day. All right, this is what he says. Now, we're finishing up volume 11. We're on the last page 340 in volume 11, Tzurba Rabbanon, and the Tzurba allows to bring down what is the din of Nashim. What is the din of Nashim and Tachanun? Do ladies say Tachanun or not? So he brings the Halichot Bat Yisrael that says Safek im isha omeret Tachanun b'nechot apayim ve'minhag she'en omeret. So the Halichot Bat Yisrael says they should not say it. Then he brings from the Rigshay Lev Tachanun nira dichtay de tamra kadei shitkaval tachanat v'tachanun. He says no, the women should say it. So what does Chacham Ovadia say? Here he says in Sif Aleph and Siman Kuf Lamed Aleph, ואין נשים צריכות לומר וידוא ונפילת אפיים. They don't have to. שאין חייבות אלא בברכות השחר, ברכת התורה, בתפילת 18. All they have to say is ברכת השחר, ברכת תורה, and 18. מכל מקום. אם הנשים רוצות להחמיר על עצמן לומר וידוי, רשות לומר הוידוי. They have permission, they have the authority, they have, if they want to. ותמרנת יגיל מידות בניגון כקבלת בתורה. And she should do it בטעמים. When she says יגיל מידות, she's saying it at home. The woman should know the ta'amim, right? To push it. Everyone used to know the ta'amim. But if she needs to skip Tachanun for her husband, or b'tipul ha'yeladim, take care of the children, they shouldn't say, oh, I can't make breakfast for the children, I can't take care of my husband because I have to say Tachanun now, and I have a lot of kavanah. No, she shouldn't do that. Because a woman, her place is to be in the house for the children, for the family, for everything. So therefore, they should say Shema also. I know he didn't say, but they should say Shema as well. Okay, and that is the din of Nashim and the Filat Tefayim. Okay, but Bezat Hashem, next week we already got the Sfarim for volume 12. Okay, I already brought the 4 here. Baruch Hashem, I already sent 3 of them out to Queens for the guys on the Zoom. They also can join out. And we have one guy from Brooklyn ordered those. He also learns with us. He watches the video afterwards, so we're going to send out to him as well. Baruch Hashem, everybody got it. And Bezat Hashem, next week we will start volume 12, which starts off with the Hilchot of Kriyat Torah. What do you do during Kriyat Torah?
So not supposed to say